Consistency is not about never falling off. It's about having a system that brings you back, fast, simple, and without guilt. Let me tell you something. Most people think successful people stay consistent because they're just more disciplined. But that's not the real story. What they actually have is something invisible, a reset system, a way to restart quickly without turning a small break into a total collapse. And once you understand this, everything changes. Because the goal is no longer perfection. The goal becomes recovery speed. How fast do you come back when you drift? Think about that. If someone works out for 10 days, skips 3, and then quits completely, that habit is fragile. But if someone works out for 10 days, skips 3, and calmly resets the next day, no guilt, no drama, that habit becomes unbreakable over time. Same person, same schedule, different system. That's what we're building here, the habit reset system. And here's the powerful part. It's simple enough to use for anything: studying, fitness, reading, waking up early, building a business, or just getting your life back on track when everything feels scattered. But before we break it down, you need to understand something important: why habits actually collapse in the first place. And I want you to really hear this. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of willpower. It's something deeper. Your brain is always trying to conserve energy. Every habit you build lives inside a system: cues, environment, emotional triggers. And when life changes even slightly, that system starts breaking. Maybe your schedule shifts. Maybe stress increases. Maybe you travel, get tired, or lose momentum. And your brain doesn't say, "Let's adjust." No. It says, "This pattern is no longer reliable. Stop running it." And that's where the drift begins. Not because you stopped caring, but because your environment stopped supporting the behavior. Let me give you a real example. Imagine someone builds a morning routine. They wake up early, drink water, journal, exercise. For 2 weeks, it feels amazing. Then work gets stressful. One morning they sleep in, then another. Now they feel behind, so they skip journaling. Then the exercise feels too much. And slowly, the entire routine disappears. Now here's the truth. That wasn't a failure. That was drift. Unchecked drift. No correction system. No way to bring things back before the gap got too wide. And this is where the habit reset system comes in. Instead of trying to stay perfect, you install a weekly reset point. A moment where you step back, look at your habits, and gently realign them. No judgment, no pressure, just a reset. Think of it like restarting your phone when it gets slow. You're not fixing everything manually, you're simply refreshing the system so it runs smoothly again. Now let's make this real. The first part of the system is reflection, but not the heavy emotional kind. No overthinking, just awareness. You ask yourself, what actually happened this week? Not what you intended, not what you should have done, just reality. Maybe you worked out twice instead of 4 times. Maybe you studied inconsistently. Maybe you scrolled more than you planned. No labels, no good or bad, just observation. Because awareness is what stops habits from disappearing silently. And here's the truth. Most people never do this step. They fall off and then avoid even looking at it. But listen closely. What you don't look at, you can't fix. Now, the second part of the system is removing friction. Let me explain this simply. If something is hard to start, your environment is working against you. So instead of relying on motivation, you change the setup. You make the good habit easier and the bad habit harder. For example, if you want to read more, you don't just try harder. You place the book where you can see it, on your bed, on your desk, next to your charger. If you want to reduce phone scrolling, you don't fight yourself all day. You move the apps off your home screen. You log out. You create distance. You're not trying to become a different person overnight. You're shaping your environment so the right action becomes the easiest action. That's the real trick. Now, the third part of the system, this is where most people completely miss it. Identity re-anchoring. Let me slow this down. Every habit you repeat is building a self-image. I am someone who works out. I am someone who studies daily. I am someone who follows through. But when you fall off, that identity weakens. So during your reset, you don't just plan actions, you reconnect with identity. Quietly, simply. I am someone who comes back quickly. I don't stay off track for long. And this matters more than people realize, because behavior doesn't follow motivation. Behavior follows identity. Now, the fourth part is where most people fail. They restart too big, too fast, too intense, and then they burn out again. So instead, you do the opposite. You shrink the habit. You make it small enough that it feels almost impossible to fail. If you stopped working out, you don't come back with a 2-hour gym session. You start with 10 minutes. If you stopped studying, you don't aim for 5 hours. You start with one focused session. The goal is not intensity. The goal is re-entry. Because once you're back in motion, consistency rebuilds itself naturally. And finally, the last part of the system is timing. You choose a fixed reset moment, same day, at the same time, every week. Because your brain loves predictability. Without a set time, the reset becomes optional, and optional things get delayed. But when it's scheduled, it becomes part of your rhythm. It just happens. No negotiation. Now let's bring this to life. Imagine a student named Alex. Alex wants better grades. He starts strong, studies daily, feels motivated. But then assignments pile up. He gets overwhelmed. He skips a day, then 2. Soon, he feels too far behind to recover. This is where most people quit, but not Alex. Alex uses the habit reset system. On Sunday evening, he sits down for 15 minutes. No panic, no self-criticism, just honesty. What happened this week? He notices something important. He studied less because his phone was always nearby, so he moves it out of his study space. He realizes he was trying to study for too long at once, so he decides to start with just one 25-minute focus session per day, and he tells himself, I am someone who always comes back. Then on Monday, he doesn't try to fix everything, he just starts. One small session. That's it. No pressure, no overwhelm. And slowly, momentum returns. Not because he became more disciplined, but because he stopped letting drift accumulate. That's the difference. Now listen closely to this. You will fall off. Not once, not twice, many times. That's normal. The goal is not to prevent the fall. The goal is to reduce the delay between falling and restarting. Because the longer the gap, the heavier it feels to return. But with a reset system, the gap never gets big enough to break you. You just returned, again and again, calmly, without drama. And over time, that becomes your real strength. Not perfect consistency, but fast recovery. So, if you take anything from this chapter, take this. Stop trying to be flawless. Start building a system that brings you back quickly. Because discipline isn't about never breaking. It's about always returning. And once you master that, your habits stop being fragile routines and start becoming part of who you are. And from that point on, you don't need motivation to keep going. You just need a reset.